Chair, guests, ladies and gentlemen, lads and lassies. Thanks for welcoming us here tonight. I'm delighted to be here and honoured to be given the toast to the mortal memory of Robert Burns. In less than 2 months' time, it'll be 3 years since I left like high school. When I say it like that, I think, geez, time fair whistles by. And I can only hope that time's gone just as quick for you lot when I sit down for this speech in 45 minutes' time. No joking. Now, I had to pre-warn you, this is the first Immortal memory that I've ever done. And I'm only here tonight because I was sat next to John Tate at last week's Most Troopers Man Supper. And he asked us when both him and I were sitting there, getting food and unco happy. He was only sitting next to us because of a mix-up in the seats thanks to Che Blythe sitting in the wrong place. And he was only getting the food because Braden George gave him a triple whiskey he couldn't handle himself. So I had to say a big thanks to Sir Che Blythe, Braden George and then John Tate for making sure I got here tonight. And before I get any more abuse than I already have done, I'd just like to clarify that this tie is actually the official Burns check. And there's nothing, absolutely not one thing to do with gala shields. I promise you, I wouldn't be seen deed with a gala tie on. It's a God's honest truth when I say I'd much rather be a lamppost in Hawick than the promised to gala. To sum up the differences between Hawick and Gala for everybody that's unawares, Gala's the team that thinks it's a city. The best road in Gala is the way out. The rugby team is a league below ours, and nowhere in Gala can you get a Robbie Pingle's bagel. In fact, if you did manage to get a bagel in Gala, it's because somebody's taken a bite of your roll. If I'm still not convinced, when the Hawick volunteers are out on the streets, hanging up banners across the high street that read "Teary bus, ye teary Odin, yon battle cry that my ancestors wrote as they followed King James IV of Scotland on their final march down the slippery slopes to their deaths at Flodden Field in 1513, there'll be a Gala laddie hanging off a lamppost somewhere in Gala, and he'll be picking up a banner that reads "Happy Birthday Granny, 30 the day." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is everything you need to ken about the greatest rivalry in the world between Hawick and that great holding pen for the Jeremy Kyle show that is Gala Shields. But, tail's tale, and the reason we're all here tonight, Robert Burns. Born into a poverty-stricken family in 1759, he never grew up with very much, and never had much on education. He was far from well off, and unlike other well-known poets, he never wrote with posh words and phrases. Dig it as wrong, it might sound fancy nowadays, but Burns' writing was in the language of the common people, and that, coupled with his gift for words, has allowed for his life to be remembered yearly. The first Burns Supper was held on the 21st of July 1801, the 5th anniversary of the poet's death. Led by the Reverend Hamilton Paul, they met at Burns' cottage in Alloway to raise a glass to the memory of their great friend and quote some of his work. They didn't count it at the time, but this was the first Burns Supper. Haggis and sheepshead were on the menu, while they recited, addressed to haggis and sang some of the great man's songs. And look where we are now. 222 years on, we're sitting down at a plate of haggis and singing some of the great man's songs. Just thank God there's no eating sheepshead. And it's not just us either. All around the world in January and February, there's Burns Suppers going on. From Bangladesh to Bunnyrig, Shanghai itself, Timbuktu to TV and Warsaw to Wilton Dean Village Hall, there's folk that will raise a glass to the life of one of Scotland's greatest assets. In the words of Freddie Mercury, it's a kind of magic. When it comes to giving a mortal memory, there are so many different ways that it can be approached and tweaked to suit the audience when delivered. So in this hall tonight, I could have went down money route, the food on the table, the friendship around it, Burns' romantic style, hell, even politics if I'd wanted. But for me, when I try and relate Burns to nowadays and how we can learn from him in different ways, I love that it was when he was age 15 that he started writing his own poetry. That's right, during the harvest of 1774, he penned "Oh Once I Loved a Bonny Lass," inspired by Nellie Kirkpatrick, who was helping him on the farm during the harvest. The opening lines of which go, "Oh once I loved a bonny lass, aye and I love her still, and whilst that virtue warms my breast, I love my handsome Nell." Compare that to the present day style of words penned by young folk, and you get raps and songs where we're effing and blind, and then you'd get if Gordon Ramsay was in the casket on a Saturday night. But by writing poems and songs from an early age, Burns used what he was good at to be successful. Put him in the present day, and he'd be an influencer with thousands of YouTube subscribers. He'd be starring in adverts on the telly. He'd have his own podcast, a column in the Scotsman, and maybe even step in for Lorraine Kelly when she was no real. He clearly didn't care what anybody thought about him or his work, and went on to write over 400 songs and poems during the next 22 years of his life, including the classics All Lang Syne, To a Mouse, A Man's a Man for All That, A Fond Kiss, Scots for Hay, and Thomas Shanter. Now, I can't be sure if this did happen, but you can imagine where it would be if Burns had packed his talent in the first time he was told that what he was doing wasn't cool, or pestered as to why he was choosing to bide in and write poetry rather than going on the sauce, because we certainly wouldn't be sitting here tonight. So, and I aim this at your younger ones in particular, never ever let other folk influence what you do. Whether it's the tuba, chess, rugby or knitting, if you're good at it and you enjoy it, then keep at it. Dinna give it up because it's not what's popular. When you've gone through the doors of this skill for the last time, it's every man for themselves, so you've got to do what you enjoy and what you're good at. It's guy cliche I can, but nobody kens what's in the corner. As you all go on to pastures new where a few is in this room will leave God's country and never return, some will experience the highest of highs, whilst others are at the lowest of lows. But it'll sound flip round, and you'll be at the lowest of lows whilst others are at the highest of highs. That's life. Some days you're the dog, some days you're the lamppost. In many ways, this was the same for Burns in his life. In one of the most unluckiest ways, he struck a deal with his Edinburgh publisher, William Creech, who made him a once-in-a-lifetime payment of 100 guineas for poems in the famous Edinburgh edition. Who can understand why a lump sum was too tempting to resist for someone like Burns. However, that short-term gain was also his long-term loss. He never got a penny from Creech for the next edition in 1793, despite it including new poems to which Creech had no legally binding rights, in particular Thomas Shanter. It must have been a bitter pill to swallow to write the best poem in Scottish literary history and receive nothing for it other than praise. In short, Burns was well and truly shafted. It was the 18th century equivalent of J.K. Rowling signing away her rights to Harry Potter and Hogwarts. Another reason I respect Burns a lot is due to his work ethic. After an irregular education, by the time he was 15 he was head labourer on the family farm. And every day of his adult life he grafted in order to provide for them that he cared about and loved so kindly, right up until his death, where he travelled 200 miles a week on horseback as an exciseman. To put that into context, that's the equivalent of doing musball riding 7 times a week. I'm cautious that it's a still night, so I doubt I'll go on much longer. But in case you haven't yet found a connection for yourself to Burns, I'm no done, so hang fire. For we've all heard of the book of Mice and Men. In fact, there's likely folk in this very room who studied the book. Well, had Burns never wrote to a moose and included the line, "The best laid schemes of mice and men gone after glide," then that book would have a completely different name. And how many of us in here, maybe mainly the slightly older audience in the room, have at some point found ourselves singing away to knock knock knocking on heaven's door, or the answer my friend is blowing in the wind? Well, Bob Dylan says that it was Burns' 1794 song, A Red Red Rose, that were the lyrics which have had the biggest effect on his life. As I get towards the end, I'm bringing us back to Hawick among the hills. For had it not been for Robert Burns, the Hawick man born in 1827, James Thompson, would never have wrote the Star of Robbie Burns. He'd never have founded Hawick Burns Club, which at one point was the largest Burns Club by membership in the world. And there's every chance that you might know of then went on to write The Border Queening Up with a Banner. Had all these things never happened, then that blue light-up bridge between the Half and the Doctors would never have been called the James Thompson Bridge. And instead, you might just have kent it as the Blue Lighty-Up Bridge. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I think everyone can in some way relate to Burns. I must admit I'm glad that Immortal Memory has given it a start of post-meal entertainment at Burns Suppers, because it means that even if this has been the most pointless, boring speech you've ever heard, there's a wealth of entertainment coming up that might yet make you go home with a smile on your face. The invite to speak here tonight is a speech up to 10 minutes. I've not been timing myself. I can see myself getting the eyes of some folk, and I think John Tate's doing a long blink, so I better wrap this up. Burns has influenced all our lives, or that there is no doubt. Whether this is your first Burns supper, or you're a seasoned attendee like Michael, the words of Burns have the ability to make the hairs stand on the back of your neck and be proud to be a Scot. Auld Lang Syne is the third most sung song in the world, after Happy Birthday for He's a Jolly Good Fellow, and has appeared in over 170 Hollywood films, including It's a Wonderful Life and When Harry Met Sally. When he died in 1796, the whole of Scotland wept a sea of tears, and it's said that 10,000 people attended his funeral in Dumfries. But death was not the end of Robert Burns' life. For a wooden box and 6 foot of clay couldn't separate a nation from a ploughman poet, and as long as we've still got his words, then neither his soul nor his spirit will ever die. So long may our lives be intertwined with his songs and poetry, and long may our love for Burns continue till all the seas gone dry. Long may we cherish the name of Robert Burns, and encourage our youth to keep his legacy alive and make sure that he really is immortal. Chair, guests, ladies and gentlemen, lads and lassies, I ask you, if able, to be upstanding and drink a toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns. To Robert Burns.